All right, get ready to dive deep into Ethereum's future, folks. Imagine this transaction smoother and faster than ever before. We're talking faster than Visa even. And the best part, it's all still going to be completely decentralized. You sent over some seriously cool research papers on how Ethereum is going to scale, and let me tell you, I am so ready to unpack this.
It's like watching the blueprint for a tech revolution unfold right before our eyes. These papers lay out a plan, a multi-stage plan to finally overcome Ethereum's limitations. We're going to be talking about refining the merge, then kicking transaction speed into overdrive with the surge, and finally, we're going to make sure everything stays fair and decentralized with the scourge.
Okay, count me in. I love a good tech mystery. So let's break this down. We've already seen the merge, which is Ethereum's big switch to proof of stake. So what's left to, well, merge?
The merge. Think of it like laying the foundation for a skyscraper. Now we're talking about building those super fast elevators with something called single slot finality. Just picture this. You're buying something, maybe a coffee with crypto, and bam, confirmation pops up before you can even blink. We're talking about instant security, seamless and smooth, especially for everyday users.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. But, and I have to ask, how do we get from confirmations that take, what, 12 seconds to instant? That just seems like such a huge task for the entire network to handle.
Oh, it's a challenge, for sure. Imagine millions of validators all having to sign off on every single transaction. It's a massive amount of data flying around. But the research, it dives into some seriously fascinating solutions. One of them's like hitting the turbo button, compressing a massive amount of data without losing any of the important stuff. Think about compressing an entire season of your favorite show into just a single file, but without losing any quality.
Talk about efficiency. But, and maybe this is a silly question, what about those of us who aren't fluent in all this cryptography? Is there a way to achieve all of this without needing a PhD in advanced math?
Absolutely. Remember when we were talking about those audit committees earlier? Instead of every single validator needing to sign off on every single thing, we can have a smaller, randomly selected group do the heavy lifting. Think of it like a super efficient security team that works in shifts. And the best part, this system doesn't just maintain that top-notch security that Ethereum is known for. It also opens the door for something pretty incredible, 1 ETH staking.
Hold on, did you just say 1 ETH staking? As in, anyone with a single ETH could help secure the entire network and earn rewards? That's a game changer. Talk about empowering the everyday user.
That's exactly right. It could completely democratize how people participate in the Ethereum network. But since we're building this superhighway to the future, we need to think long-term, which is where things get really interesting with this idea of single secret leader elections.
Okay, now that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. Are we talking about choosing a leader for each block, but keeping their identity top secret until the very last second?
You're catching on quickly. It's all about keeping those with bad intentions guessing. Right now, the system broadcasts who's proposing the next block ahead of time, which makes them a target. But with single secret leader election, it's like giving them a cloak of invisibility until the very, very last moment. This would make the entire network way more resilient to any attacks.
So it's like a surprise party for every single block, which, I have to say, keeps things exciting and secure. But before we move on to the surge, I have to know, the research mentioned faster confirmations. Does this mean we can finally ditch the 12-second wait?
Now you're talking about the dream. Imagine knowing almost instantly that your transaction has gone through. That's the goal. One way to do this is by shortening those slot times, kind of like speeding up a conveyor belt. But, and there's always a but, this could give an advantage to those with insanely fast internet connections, which could end up centralizing things.
And we absolutely can't have that. Decentralization is non-negotiable. What's the alternative?
That's where pre-confirmations come into play. Imagine getting a receipt before your credit card even clears. That's what we're talking about. Block proposers could basically send out early signals throughout the slot, giving everyone instant peace of mind. Of course, getting block proposers to actually do this reliably is still an open question, but hey, at least the potential is there, right?
It's incredible how this all ties together. Faster confirmations, even more security, fewer barriers to entry with the 1 ETH staking idea. It's like we're building a whole new engine for the Ethereum we all know and love.
And we're just getting started. Hold on tight, because the surge is where things get really, really interesting. Get ready, because we're about to take transaction speed to a whole new level. We might even be able to surpass those big players in traditional finance. Get ready to blast off with the surge. We're talking about an Ethereum that doesn't just keep up, it sets the pace. The whole financial world is going to have to catch up to us.
Okay, now that's the energy I like to hear. But let's be real for a second. How do we actually make this happen? It can't be as easy as hitting a button and suddenly everything's faster, right?
You're right, it's not magic. Well, maybe it's a little like magic. This is where layer 2 scaling comes in. Imagine, we're going to take all that traffic off the main Ethereum highway and divert it onto these high-speed express lanes.
I love a good analogy. So layer twos are like those express lanes, making everything super fast, while the main Ethereum chain, it's like the bedrock, making sure everything's safe and secure.
Exactly. And one of the coolest things these papers talk about is this thing called data availability sampling. DAS, they call it. And it's all about doing more with less.
DAS, DAS. Okay, hold on. I'm getting lost in all these acronyms. What makes DAS so special?
All right, picture this. You need to find one single fact, but to do that, you have to read this entire book. With DAS, you can be sure the fact's in there without reading every single page. You just check a few key spots. It's about knowing the information's good without having to download everything.
So it's like skimming the headlines to get the important stuff, but with like way more accuracy.
Exactly. The research talks about a bunch of really cool ways to do this. One way is with something called 1D sampling. It's like, imagine you check a few random pages in that book to make sure everything's legible in the right order. If it is, you could be pretty sure the whole book is there.
Makes sense. But Ethereum's a little more complicated than a book. How do we check for errors within the actual data itself?
They've thought of that too.
Yep.
They have this thing called 2D sampling. So it's not just about checking random pages. It's like checking specific sentences on those pages, just to be extra sure everything's accurate.
They really did think of everything. But even with these super smart sampling methods, data still takes up space. It's like trying to cram your entire wardrobe into a tiny suitcase.
That's a great way to put it. And that's where data compression comes in. It's like swapping out those bulky suitcases for those sleek, compact ones.
So we're talking about using space-saving tricks, but for the entire Ethereum network.
Exactly. And they're looking at all kinds of cool ways to do it. One of them is called signature aggregation. Instead of needing a separate signature for every single transaction, we can combine a bunch of signatures into just one.
It's like a group chat, but for verifying transactions. Much more efficient. What else?
Oh, and remember those super long, complicated Ethereum addresses? Well, they're trying to find ways to replace them with shorter, simpler pointers. It's like using nicknames instead of full names every time. Every little bit helps.
I'm starting to see how this all comes together, like a big puzzle. We've got DAS to verify all the data without overloading the system. We've got data compression to maximize the space we have. What else am I missing?
Well, remember Plasma, that older scaling solution we talked about. It's making a comeback. And this time, it's supercharged with the power of snarks.
Wait a minute, Plasma's back. I thought that was old news.
Yeah, it kind of faded away for a bit, but all the crazy advancements with snarks have brought it back into the game. It's like Plasma can now build secure tunnels right into the heart of the Ethereum network, even for applications with tons of traffic.
So it's like having a dedicated fast lane that bypasses all the traffic jams, but it's still protected by the security of the main Ethereum chain. Tell me more.
You got it. With snarks, Plasma can handle way more different applications, even those that need super-duper high levels of security.
This is all super exciting, but with DAS streamlining how we verify data, these data compression tricks making things more efficient, and now Plasma making a huge comeback, I've got to ask, what does this mean for the big picture? What's the ultimate goal here?
The end game is huge. Think of it this way. Ethereum won't just be faster, more efficient. It'll be the base layer, the foundation for a whole new internet of finance. It's kind of wild when you think about it.
Okay, now that gets me fired up. But you know what they say, with great power comes great responsibility. Can we really ramp up all this speed and efficiency and still make sure things stay fair? Decentralized, you know?
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that is exactly where the scourge comes in. It's like our defense system against anything that tries to centralize this thing we're building.
Because what's the point of having this superhighway, this amazing network, if it's only a select few who get to use the fast lane?
Exactly. The research, it points out two big, battlegrounds we have to focus on. Block construction and staking economics. Let's tackle block construction first. Remember those MEV bots we were discussing? The ones kind of gaming the system for their own profit?
Oh yeah, those sneaky bots. They're like that friend who always manages to grab the biggest slice of pizza every single time.
Well, it turns out the way Ethereum builds blocks right now actually makes it easier for them to do that.
Wait, seriously, we're accidentally helping these bots game the system? That needs to change ASAP. What can we do?
One really cool solution they're exploring is something called inclusion lists. Just imagine. Validators, the ones who keep the network secure, they get to decide which transactions get top priority.
Okay, so it's kind of like a VIP list, but for transactions, and the validators are the bouncers, right? I'm into it. Tell me more.
So with inclusion lists, validators would basically make a pre-approved list of all these transactions. And the block birders, the ones who actually put the blocks together, they have to include everything on that list, no exceptions.
So no more line cutting for those MEV bots. They can't manipulate the system anymore. This is brilliant. But, and I do like to play devil's advocate, are there any downsides here?
It's super important to think about these things from all angles. One thing that worries some people is that whoever controls these lists, these inclusion lists, they can become like a new kind of centralizing force, right? So the research, it digs into ways to stop that from happening using something called fork choice enforced inclusion lists. It's a mouthful, so they just call it FOCIL.
OFOCIL. I do love a good acronym. So how does OFOCIL, how does it keep everything decentralized?
Think of it like checks and balances, but for inclusion lists. Instead of one single entity calling all the shots, OFOCIL, it uses a whole committee to create those lists for each and every block. So it'd be way harder for one person or group to take control.
Decentralization by committee, love it. It's the Ethereum way. Okay, we've tackled block construction. We still got one more battleground to cover. Staking economics. What are we up against there?
Staking, it's super important for Ethereum security, but it's also potentially a point where things could become centralized. Right now, you need 32 ETH to become a validator, which is a lot. I get it. It shows you're committed, but it also means there are a lot of people who simply can't participate.
Yeah, not everyone just has a spare 32 ETH just lying around. I can totally see how this could lead to a situation where it's only the wealthy who get to have a say.
Exactly. And then there's another thing. If too much ETH gets locked up in staking, well, that can mess with the overall liquidity of the whole network.
Liquidity, meaning that we need enough ETH readily available for all the day-to-day transactions, right?
Right. So the challenge becomes, how do we balance the need for super secure staking with, decentralization and liquidity? It's a tough one.
The million-dollar question for sure. So what's the answer?
Well, there are a bunch of really cool ideas floating around out there. One idea is to actually put a limit on, to cap the amount of ETH that can be staked.
Whoa, a staking cap. That's a pretty radical idea. How would that even work?
It's all about incentives. As more ETH gets staked, getting closer and closer to that cap, the rewards you get for staking, they would gradually decrease. Eventually, it would be like a tiny amount. So people wouldn't be as interested in staking past that point. That way, a healthy amount of ETH stays in circulation.
So it'd be like this self-regulating system for staking. That's amazing. Prevents too much ETH from getting locked up, keeps everything balanced.
Exactly. And there are even more ideas they're looking at, like maybe a two-tiered staking system. You'd have different levels of participation, different rewards, It would give more flexibility for people who don't have tons of ETH.
Wow, we've covered so much ground today. It's been quite the roller coaster. We've talked about making transactions lightning fast and then dove into all the challenges of decentralization and security. It's really incredible to think about what the future holds for Ethereum.
It really is a future filled with possibilities. But we've got to remember, none of this is set in stone. It's going to take continuous research, development, and honestly, we've got to think critically about the challenges and the opportunities in front of us.
You said it. The future of Ethereum isn't just about code, it's about everyone working together, developers, researchers, and even users like us. This deep dive has given us a lot to consider, and I, for one, can't wait to see where this all goes. Until next time, everybody, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and let's keep building that decentralized future we all believe in.